My husband Brian and I have been part of Venture since 2012, along with our adult daughter Amanda, who's very involved. A lot of people are familiar with her. I, in my 40s, went back to school. Knew I wanted to do something different and decided to be a counselor. So I actually got a ministry degree at Northwest University, 2012. Went to Seattle Pacific University, got my master's in marriage and family therapy in 2014, and started my practice at 2016. So I've been doing it about 4 years now. And I'm at the church. I'm not employed by the church, but they provide a space for me. It's really awesome to be there. And so this is my new life endeavor, and I feel like it's a calling that God has placed on me. And so I tell my clients, this is not just my vocation, it's also my ministry. So that's kind of who I am in regards to this. So today we're going to talk about anxiety and depression. And I've chatted about it a few times before, and I have to say, sometimes it's a little overwhelming when someone says talk about anxiety and depression, because it's such a huge, broad topic. The definitions vary depending on what your context is, and the severity varies depending on what you're experiencing too. So I am going to hit like some high points, and I'm very practical. If you were to come see me, I always want to give you something you can take away to maybe make that day or that week a little bit better. So a lot of today will be on the practical, some information, and then some tools, and then we can go from there a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to just read some definitions so we can start with there. So anxiety, okay, it says an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes like sweating, dizziness, or rapid heartbeat. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And like when we had our interview a couple days ago, I talked about the distinction that can be made between stress and anxiety. I'm just going to repeat some things I said because it's different people listening. Stress in its purest form is a really good thing because it tells us that we need a plan of action. If you are kind of like, I'll use my same example. If you're on a hiking trail, you come to a very narrow trail, there's no guardrail, you would fall to your death if you misstep, and your heart is beating hard, your palms are sweating, you're very fearful. That's a really good thing because your body and your mind are telling you, be intentional, take some steps to preserve your life. And then you get across that and it's resolved. And that's like a really simple example of stress. And then anxiety, as some would say, it kind of morphs into anxiety when you can't resolve that stress. That example very easily resolved. Other people have situations, or sometimes we choose not to get out of them because it's such a familiar pattern in our lives. And many times you talk to people with anxiety, they won't know. It's so much simpler, like, why are you so stressed? Well, like, for instance, right now we can say, I have not left my house. I haven't seen my friends or my family. That's a really easy, cause and effect formula we have. But some people have anxiety and they don't know why. And it's because it's been so ongoing. What they feel is normal is actually not, and it causes anxiety. So that is how I view anxiety. So depression, I'm going to give the definition for that. It's a mood disorder characterized by an inability to experience pleasure, difficulty in concentrating, disturbance of sleep and appetite, and feelings of sadness, guilt, and helplessness. And that too, sometimes we can be very, very cause and effect. You had something horrible happen and you're depressed. Another time, many times though, with depression, especially if people talk about having clinical depression, the frustration is they don't know why they're like, what's going on, why they're feeling that way. They'll list off all the great things in their life and they're still feeling depressed. So let's talk a little bit about potential causes. I have observed that as we all know, we're all very different created individuals with different temperaments and different personalities. And some are just more resilient to unpleasant circumstances and hard times in their lives than others. And some people are more feeling and they absorb it more and they take it to heart more. again, there can be uncontrolled situations. I talk a lot about people when they come in about family of origin issues, because we kind of want to go back to that. And sometimes, again, there's patterns that have been established that you think are normal and they're not, and you live with it, and then you have anxiety and or depression because you're something inside you saying, this is not right, this is not right. And kind of along the same lines is, for both anxiety and depression, there can be a trauma that's occurred in your past that can result in chronic anxiety and depression. And trauma is another interesting word, because like if we were talking about PTSD, to me, the first thing that comes to my mind is, the soldier in combat who sees his buddy get blown up next to him. That's kind of how it started. But trauma can be so many things that affect us in a negative way, something that we shouldn't have maybe witnessed or experienced. And I also will talk about trauma with a capital T, so that combat situation, or an earthquake where you saw someone fall to their death or whatever. That would be like a capital T. And sometimes there's a lowercase t, where sometimes we go, oh, that's not that big a deal. That's not that big a deal. I'm okay, because we don't want to draw attention to ourselves, or we want to minimize what we're going through. But that still has an effect on us. In fact, there's kind of a new diagnosis now called CPTSD, meaning chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. And that kind of applies to, like, especially kids and teenagers who are in families and relationships that are negative, abusive. And not just, and when I say abuse, again, not just physical or sexual, emotional and verbal, mental abuse. That can be horrific, but as a society, we tend to not recognize that as much, or we tend to minimize it because there's no bruises, but mentally and emotionally, it's devastating, and it can wreak horrible effects on that. So again, and it can be anything from very mild to very severe. Oh, let me go back again to depression, about the distinction now, because people are saying, oh, I'm so depressed. Most likely, if it's because of the stay-at-home order and this new situation we're in, it could be grief. Because grief is not just loss of a loved one, it is loss of anything that you hold near and dear, which could be a relationship, a lifestyle. Maybe it's an illness, a diagnosis you've gotten, anything that's a job loss. A lot of that happening now too. So all of that can be considered grief, and part of grief is depression. So kind of the good news is we're in this temporarily, caveat, we don't know how long. That's the temporary thing, is still a tough thing to deal with. But maybe it's just grief you're going through, and you're not in the throes of depression. So, but there is a distinction. And when I shared this a couple months ago with the youth at the winter retreat, I was looking at my notes for that, and some of the leadership at youth had said, the words anxiety and depression tend to be like buzzwords, because like teenagers will grab onto it, like, oh yeah, that's me, because they want identity. And so I just want to express that having anxiety or having depression is not your identity. That is just something you struggle with. We all struggle with things in our lives, and this just may be what you are struggling with, one or both of these things. So don't let it be your identity, because sometimes we grasp onto that, and then that we make it more than it is sometimes too. I never ever want to minimize how someone's feeling about something, but at the same time, put it in its proper context of what's going on within your life. So what can we do? So basically, the bottom line is we have to take steps ourselves to take care of ourselves mentally and emotionally. Now, there are the extremes where maybe there's going to be hospitalization occurs, but that's much rarer, and that's not really what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about we're semi-functioning, but we're struggling with this. So I want to have some really practical tools. And the way when people come to me, I tell them I look at them through this lens, through a bio, psycho, social, spiritual lens. And so, for instance, let's break it down. Bio is your physical. How are you doing physically? Psycho is mental and emotional, what your mental and emotional health is like. Social is our relationships, our family and our friends, our coworkers. And spiritual is where we are with our walk with God. What kind of health is that? And the ideal is that we are healthy in all of these areas, and we have to take steps to be healthy in all of these areas. So this is kind of the meat of it here. So if people come in and I have some questions, they ask, like I say, how much sleep are you getting? How much caffeine are you consuming? How much alcohol are you consuming? So if you're getting 3 hours of sleep, I'm going to say, well, maybe we're not going to talk about some other issues first until we get this figured out, because you're probably irrational all the time and you're viewing things differently. So we're going to take care of, the biological part. You're not going to see me for your medical needs, but I'm going to say, go to your GP, go to your doctor, your family doctor, and get some things figured out. So get enough sleep. Get enough water. Oh my gosh. A family member here, he doesn't drink enough water. I have to remind him, drink some water. You're dehydrated. That's why you're not feeling good. It affects how you view things. And when I was looking at my notes for the teenagers, I said, eat more good food than bad food. We're all going to eat, indulge in things we shouldn't, but eat more good food than bad food. And then engage in physical activity. Two clients this week, we were both talking about the struggles of being home. One was the fact that she could no longer have her same morning routine, getting physical, and how it really is affecting the rest of her day negatively. And she was making plans to morph her schedule so she could work that in again. And then another mom with young kids said, no, we've been doing this. We've been getting out and walking these few miles, and how that has just laid the foundation for a better day. So again, these are things that we really do have control over. We have control to do these things. So psycho, mental and emotional, that's to take care of your mind. So here's just some real simple things. And now I'm reading my notes, looking at the context of staying at home. It's a little more challenging. The first two things I said was limit screen time and prioritize face-to-face connection. So, wow, that certainly turned on its head here a little bit. So like, even like right now we're having, pseudo face-to-face connection, and we're on a screen. So that's going to increase now, but we have to kind of make that work for us. And we know when we're in a relationship with someone, we know what fuels us, because this is really what the taking care of ourselves mentally and emotionally is. This is a big thing I talk about, is our self-care. How do we take care of ourselves? And so self-care, I want to unpack that a little bit, because it means something to everybody else. We all have our different things that fuel us. Something you look forward to. And again, now it's more challenging, right? I have a good friend who's out of state, and just a phone call from her, I am charged up for a long time, because we have such a great connection that it's like, oh, I need to call my friend. That fuels me. That fuels me. So again, my examples I would used to use were like, maybe you need to go get a massage. Maybe you need to go for a walk. You can do that now. Maybe you need to get a pedicure. I was like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. So we need to get creative about what fuels us. Here I said too, like, read a book instead of watching TV. Wow, there we go. Pull the book off the shelf instead of reading stuff on our pads. So, but this is so important. The fueling part of it. The analogy I use is like a gas tank. Life, when it's good, drains us like a brand new car. It still uses gas. So we still get drained, and then we throw some more obstacles at it, some more struggles, and we're drained even further. And then what happens a lot of time, and I want to say, I feel like this happens a lot to the demographic of the Christian woman, it's real susceptible to this, is trying to run on empty all the time. They disregard their need. Oh, that's being selfish. I don't need to fuel myself. I don't need that. No, I'll take care of the kids. I'll take care of the husband. I'll take care of my parents, whatever it is. And they don't really get the fact that they need to take care of themselves too. It's not being selfish. It's being very practical to take care of yourself. And I just want to touch on this a little bit, because I think it's so prevalent, and I don't know if it directly connects directly to anxiety, but I believe it does, is there's a lot of codependent relationships that occur. And let me unpack that a little bit too, where an individual feels they need to take care of all the emotional and physical needs of another individual. The stereotypical example is like the alcoholic husband and the codependent wife. And what the codependent does is not let the alcoholic husband reap the consequences of his choices. And we don't grow. So we're actually doing them a disservice in the big picture, in the long run. We all need to experience consequences of our actions. But sometimes we've gotten this message at some point that we love this person and we're serving them, we're helping them, and that would be bad for them. So I'm going to do this for them. And then this horrible negative relationship occurs. And that codependent person is drained all the time, because we are not created to take care of emotionally and physically another individual like that. The exception to me would be, I always kind of laugh when I say this, is when we're raising our kids. We're a little bit codependent with our kids because that's kind of the nature of the relationship. However, and that should morph out too. They're totally codependent from day one, and ideally by the time they're 18 graduating, we've done our job and we're letting go. Okay, so codependency, that's a huge thing that I feel like really creates a lot of anxiety, because you're overworked mentally and emotionally all the time. So socially, being healthy socially in our relationships. I said, be intentional about building safe relationships. This is so important, and can be kind of, I don't know, precarious to talk about a little bit, because lots of times we're talking about family members. It's a little easy. Let's start with friendships. Okay, it's a little easier there. I had someone tell me that a close family member who loves them dearly lies all the time. This individual lies all the time, and it's not about. It wasn't about the person I was talking to. It was about that gal. And I said, oh, if this person was not this beloved family member, that relationship would probably morph out. You probably wouldn't maintain a relationship with someone who's lying to you all the time. But with family, super close family member, then you're going to maintain it to some degree. And so one is when to let go of relationships, or how to navigate healthily through ones that aren't so great, with these flaws in them that again are draining to you. Seek out safe, healthy relationships. Our church community is the best place to do that. We have, of course, the growth groups where you can find new people. If you're awesome ministries. And one thing, next thing I'm talking about is two things I recommend basically to all of my clients that I just fully strongly about. Is one is basically everyone should check out CR once that starts again, or I know they have some online stuff. I guess I'd say talk to Daniel Carpenter about what it looks like now online. But CR is a place where you can talk about your hurts, habits, hangups, and you don't feel alone. And so what usually is happening is your relationships are causing you distress in your life, and you think you can handle it, or you think, oh, I'm not going to tell anybody about my problem because I'm too embarrassed, and I'm the only one who's going through this. And you go to a place like CR where it's no judgment. It's all about let's get better, let's heal, let's share our stories, and you organically create relationships there in addition to the great tools they give you to not feel alone. So CR. And then the other thing that I talk about a lot, and I recommend, is this older book written in the 90s, is Boundaries by Henry Cloud and John Townsend. That is, I would say to my clients sometimes that I probably wouldn't have a job if everybody kind of adhered to what the book Boundaries said about relationships, because it's a very biblically based premise on how to say no, and what you can allow in your life and what you do not allow in your life. And it kind of turns upside down some of these old, if you've been in the church a long time, there's been some old misguided messages about what it means to be sacrificial and loving and giving. And he lays it out in a very biblical, practical way of how to walk through relationships. So, and spiritually, one of the things that I'm really careful about, because I do advertise as a Christian counselor. I know I have some colleagues that are Christians that are counselors that don't really advertise it like that. And I don't. I'm licensed with the Assemblies of God. So I'm totally immersed in, like, I'm going to do Christian counseling for you. So there's no surprise about that. So sometimes Christian counselors, they're, the message is, oh, you're just going to tell me to pray and read my Bible and everything will be okay, and I need more than that. And I totally agree. I totally agree with that. However, I want to say, let's not disregard that either. So like I said, like, I'm looking at my notes. So I was talking to the youth. It's like, take care of your relationship with God. Talk to him every day. And I say it like that. Talk to him every day. Generally, now, not now so much, but generally when I'm praying, I'm in the car. When I'm doing my commuting around, that's when I'm talking to God. Okay. Get into the Bible. Go to church. Again, we're a little different here now. Or get online and go to all the things offered to you online. You need to be fueled. Certainly there's times I'm like, oh, I don't want to get up. I don't want to go. And I go, and I always walk away receiving something. So it's really important that God does meet us there. And that's a huge way to get fueled. Read other books about, your spiritual walk. Lots of resources out there. We have lots of people at the church who could direct you to a number of books that kind of can fuel you in that regard too. So those are the 4 things, the bio, psycho, social, and spiritual areas of our life that we want to be healthy in, which I know it seems a little far out, but it does. It's going to affect your anxiety and your depression. Okay, and so then the next thing that I think is really important, and it's kind of like core to me, is two things I believe wholeheartedly, is that we are not content in life unless we are walking in God's purpose for us. And that can look different in different seasons. And sometimes there's a break too. When I was going to school, I was not serving in any church ministry at all. I was preparing for a new ministry. And so we have to look at that, like, what does God have for us in the season? But I don't believe we're content unless we're doing what his purpose is. And to add on to that, his purpose usually involves serving other people. And I'm going to go back. I always say to my clients too, but that doesn't mean be codependent. Do what he would have you do. And the benefit of that is, if you are serving other people in a healthy way, your eyes get off yourself a little bit, and you will find your anxiety and your depression is not as intense. It kind of puts things in perspective. So that's the healthy, practical things. So, but here at the end, I just want to say a couple things about the person who says, check, 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 check. I've done all that. I have debilitating anxiety. I am so depressed, I can't get out of bed. Then it's time to get professional help. I would say too, start with your family doctor, get a really good physical, get blood tests, all that. Just check, just rule out everything like that. And then perhaps you need medication. And that's not my wheelhouse at all. I think it's a tool that can be used. I don't think it's something we should rely on totally. But what I will say, I feel so strongly about this, is that you are receiving medication or desire, think that might be the next step for you to do, to get receive medication for anxiety and or depression, that you be super confident in your prescriber. Because any MD can prescribe any medication, and granted, your family doctor may be really well versed in that, but maybe not. Maybe he's just pulling it off the shelf. I don't know. So I strongly recommend that if you have an issue like that, you see a psychiatrist for the prescription part of it. So that's my soapbox I stand on about that, because medications, we want to do that right. We want to do that right. Okay. And then see a licensed counselor. Maybe that's what you need to do, to talk through it, have your own space, your own time to see someone that's a third party to your life, just to talk things out. Because boy, I have learned in having this practice now for a number of years, that just the fact of speaking things out is therapeutic for people. We keep things inside, we build it up, and sometimes we make things worse than they are. But if we can share it, we can unpack it verbally, it diminishes the symptoms greatly, many, many times. Okay, that is basically what I have for you today. So if there's any questions from any of you.
Great stuff. First of all, great stuff. Thank you so much. I know Kristen was putting a question in the chat. Kristen, you want to ask that yourself? If you do, unmute yourself and ask away, my friend.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hold on one second.
Oh, she's got an echo going, huh?
Yeah.
You want me to ask for you?
So,
oh, you got it.
There we go. Is that good now? All right. So we have, some younger kids here. We've got, from 7 to 14 years old in our house. And I think we're personally, when you use the word grief, I think sometimes we're dealing with that in the situation that we're in. So I would love, I took notes on all your practical steps of what you were listing here, but is there anything specific to like dealing with grief that would be applicable across our whole family? Some practical tools that you could recommend?
Well, when you talk about dealing with it as a family, so I don't know if you know my story or not, but we lost our son a few years ago. And so we truly dealt with grief as a family here. And it was my husband, my adult daughter, and I. And so with that intensity of it, what we found was, this was something we experienced that we didn't anticipate experiencing the way we experienced it. And the biggest thing that got us through that was we respected each other's differences in how we went through grief. There's no right way to do it. Everybody does it a little differently, and to have grace and understanding for how you walk through it. So that's my first response to that is, if they're sad about going to, school and their friends, verbalize again. Give a safe place, an opportunity to talk about it. Ask a lot of questions with your kids, and not like, how are you? But maybe start out with empathy. If you can find an example in your own life that you go, oh, when this happened to me, I felt like that. Do you feel like that too? So they feel a better connection to you, and then they're more apt to share with you if they feel, oh, she does understand. So to have a place to verbally process that, and then respect that you're like, oh, the younger ones, maybe they're misbehaving, because that's how they communicate, right? And we want to go, you stop that, here's your consequence for misbehaving, which is appropriate many, many times. But during this time, maybe you want to say, yeah, we don't like that behavior, but I want to talk about what maybe you're feeling. And you know your kids well enough to know how to talk to them so they can hear you. But give them a place of to respond, and a lot of empathy, because they're gonna talk to you more if they're feeling that they're understood.
That's really good. Thank you.
Sure.
And you would probably agree, well, probably any of us that are parents would agree that, especially when kids they act out where they feel safest, where they're going to feel loved no matter how they behave. And so they need an outlet for it. And right now it's only you. Mm-hmm. It's only whoever's directly around them, you get the shrapnel in you. So understanding that they're acting out is part of it.
Yeah, that's so true. And boy, I'm feeling very fortunate in this situation that we have, where we're living, we have 4 adults here. I have no small children, and my heart just aches for those, because when I was raising my kids, I highly valued my time away from my children. I knew the breaks that I needed, and I really valued that. And I'm like, I kind of imagine going, oh, that would be so hard. So first of all, I wanted to say, you give yourself a break. I didn't touch on this, but I read something from a teacher on Facebook, and she said, parents, please don't get too hung up on the educational part of it. I mean, whatever, but please just bring your kids back happy, meet their emotional needs right now. The academics are like a bonus, and I totally concur with that. Of course, I know there's assignments and there's stuff to do, but to me personally, that's a low priority, especially the younger they are, because she said, I'll take care of them when they get back in September. I'll get it. We'll get it all figured out. It's all in the same boat there. But I would say that's secondary, and just take care of them emotionally right now is the highest priority. Everything else will fall into
so
place.
Good.
Yeah.
So good.
Super good. Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Any really book suggestions for parents to create like an emotionally safe environment for kids, and like a tool that way?
That is a good question. I do not have one off the top of my head but I'm going to look that up. So I'm writing it down right now.
If I could also, while you're writing, Ann, just go back to the grief topic for just a second, sure. Because I think for the average person listening, they might think, wow, grief, that sounds so extreme for the circumstances. Maybe someone's watching or listening that thinks, well, I haven't lost a loved one, or, you know, I don't have anything that extreme. But I think it's what you said is so important to hear, that we've all lost something or lots of somethings, even just our freedom or our daily routine. And so the stages of grief still come into play, and they don't necessarily go in order. And once you've moved through a stage, you don't go, check, that's behind me. You could circle back around to the sadness part of it multiple times a day, let alone multiple days in a row.
Yes. Yeah. And that, you know, like I said, in our experience, that became very real. But even going back when I was in school for my counseling, and they said, hey, these stages of grief, they're there, but let's throw out that order, because that we have found that not to be true. And so like some of the stages are denial. We'll be fine tomorrow. You know, everything back to normal. That's denial. You know, anger, which I would imagine the kids are probably, that's the one they're going to go to a lot. They're going to be angry because these are uncontrolled situations. Man, we like control. And we realize this so much is out of our control. And that's a really, really appropriate response, is anger to not having control. Another helpful hint I read that I thought was so good, and this might be good to apply to your kids, is to find something you have complete control of. Like, it was talking to like women staying at home, like, you can rearrange your living room, you know, you can organize your cupboards, or find a project that you have complete control over. So maybe your kids, not even a school related, but maybe there's a project or something, like, or let them rearrange their room, or do something that, or maybe even something, I don't know how you are as a parent, that you might be hang on to a little tight, that maybe you loosen up a little bit, you know, to let them have some control. Because that will soothe them. That will comfort them. That'll give them.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in on this, because I think this is where I'm personally struggling, because I need to find the area that I can control, because we're all dealing with stuff that's outside of our control. Well, it just so happens that the thing I want to control to make my life feel less insane is I want my kitchen to be clean. Particularly, I want my sink to be clean. But it turns out that the 5 to 7 people on any given day that live here, that's not a priority for them. And so they're contributing to my crazy feelings. And so finally, I had to ask my husband to speak on my behalf, because I sound like a nag, and I know I do. But it's like, I just need this one thing, guys. I need this like emotional, sane place. And unfortunately, it's a shared space. Do I just need to pick something else and get over it? Or what do you suggest? Help.
No, I kind of hear you, and people can hear me, so I'm not going to talk as loud. And that's been my last, actually, to be really honest, that's been my thought process the last couple of days too. Is like, what do I say? What do I do? Is this something to let go? Right, you kind of have to decide how high of a value it is. But if it's causing you agitation continually, it's probably worth talking about. Yeah, I'm kind of struggling with that, with similar area too. It's like, that's okay, but
maybe the wording of it, as in, this is just the one thing I really need you guys to help me with. If you only do one thing in a day, I don't care if you leave your shoes all over and your school books, and my whole house is a school. In fact, my son picks up his backpack and he walks from the entryway of the house to the dining room table and he says, bye, I'm going to school. But I don't care if the whole house is school. I just want the kitchen sink to be clean, please.
Yeah. And so in communicating too, and with people, again, you've probably heard this, back to the I messages rather than the you messages. You know, oh, you guys keep my sink so dirty. It's like, I need. This is not, I wouldn't say, this is not about you. This is about me. This is a visual thing for me. When I walk past the kitchen and I see the sink clean, it gives me that great feeling. And when I see it all grungy, it's just like, you know, just say, I would even say, you know, I'm just kind of quirky about this. This is my one deal.
Yep.
This is what I'm learning about myself being at home. I need a clean sink. Yeah. But how you present it, the I message, not the you message.
That's good. I have one more question and then you guys jump in too. But my other thing that I would love to bring back around is, hold on, let me think about how to word it. Kristen, you have a question while I think about a good way to word this? You're still muted, Kristen.
I'm muting.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I actually would love for you to go through the rest of the stages of grief, because I know I've gone over them, but I think it's good to know those and
okay.
stop the anger, which, you know, I identify with. But yeah, what are the other three? You got denial and anger.
I have 5 written down, and I think there's 7. So, but I'm going to tell you the 5 that I have before me: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then finally acceptance. And I was totally right how that just like, you can go all over the place. One might hit you more than the other, one nothing at all. And there was someone shared with me on Facebook a few years ago when we were going through our thing about how the chart says grief looks like this. This real, and then she says how I experienced grief, and it showed all the lines intertwining. And it's like, yes, that's how it is. So yeah, and so with your kids, I would add too, normalize their feelings. It's okay. You can feel angry. You know what? Our feelings are our feelings. I want to be very distinct talking to people about, you can feel angry. But I would say to my kids when they were teenagers, I says, you can feel what you want to feel. How you behave as a result of that feeling, that might have some consequences. But you're not weird. You're not out of control, hopefully, with your feelings. But choices you make because of those feelings, then you're going to step in, possibly.
Right, you're in control, and that goes back to like what you're in control of, right? You're in control of how you respond. You're not necessarily in control of the situation or what's happening to you, but you do have control over how you respond to that situation and how you treat others around you in that situation. So yeah, very true.
It's good. Okay, so if I were to bring it back around to boundaries for a minute, boundaries is something that I agree wholeheartedly with and have to reassess constantly in my life because I'm a self-sacrificer in order to help other people. But I think boundaries are so blurred, and we talked about this really briefly, Ann, when I was interviewing the other day, but I think boundaries are so blurred right now between work and home life. And if I were to say it so bluntly as, it used to be the work day. And so 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., you don't bother somebody because now they're at home having home time. But in the minds of most people, it's like, well, why wouldn't you be available right now? You have nothing else to do. And I know you're at home and I know you're holding your phone. So you should answer my email or my text at 11 p.m. or 6 a.m. And so can you just speak off the cuff? Like, here's a couple really smart boundary things you can do right now, quarantined at home, just practical steps.
Yeah. And with your situation, you're unique, right? Because you're serving vocation. And people need a lot of being served. Need a lot from you right now, you and your staff. And I know in this culture, with venture church culture, you're a primary go-to because you're relational, and they know you. They have your ear. So I would suspect that you're probably getting most of the texts. I mean, I'm sure the other people are too, but I would suspect that you're probably getting most of them. So I don't know how it looks technologically or what you need to do, but you need to say, these are my days, or these are my hours. I do not respond after this time, and I don't start responding until this time. And I don't know, maybe you need to go, I don't know if you guys still do this where you have a pastor on call, but because someone could pass away in the middle of the night, right? So maybe there needs to be something where it's like this person, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Thursday night, and it's like, so that at 10 o'clock on Monday night, you can go to bed and you don't have to worry about anybody trying to reach you, because other people can take care of things too. Because you're very efficient and you're very competent, but you might have to let go of that a little bit because you're not maintain that if you keep spreading yourself out.
Totally. And so I started using Do Not Disturb on my phone. But even for someone like Kristen, who, is still working full time. Are you finding that you, or even you, Ann, are you finding that people are reaching out to you well beyond what used to be work hours, and you're having a hard time, like, well, I'm not doing anything else anyway, I might as well reply to this email, or I might as well reply to this text? So how are you guys practically handling that?
Yeah, so for me, I worked from home before this all started. And so I had already had to set some boundaries for myself because I was overworking. It's just too easy when it's so accessible. So I had to put either some physical boundaries or some time boundaries in place, and then sticking with those or adjusting them slightly, because like, okay, now I want to go have lunch with the kids in the middle of the day when they're taking their school lunch break. So I've adjusted my work hours so that I can have more quality time, because I've got plenty of quantity time. So I guess that's the one for me where I still want that quality time while I'm still continuing to work. And then actually shutting my computer off when my day is done, and stepping away from that space. So having the physical boundaries has helped, because it is really easy to overwork right now because it's so accessible.
Yeah, for me personally, and I've always been this way too, if a client connects with me at a later time at night, I may not respond unless it's something I feel like super urgent, which hasn't happened a lot. And I'll go, no, this is out of work areas, out of the work time, and I will get back to them in the morning during what I would call regular, traditional work hours. So did we lose Di?
Yeah, I think we did.
Okay.
Yeah, it says that someone else is the host of the meeting now. So, and I don't know if it says it's still recording. So this should be fun.
Okay. All right. Buddy, I was telling her at the beginning, our internet goes out occasionally. I have to go, and in fact, I had to reset it right before this started. And she says, "Oh, well, I'll just fill in for you until you get back. And now if I leave, that's something else." I'm like, oh, there she goes. So interesting.
I have to wait until she comes back. I don't think I can control the recording.
No, I don't think we can either. Yeah. She's the host. I'm looking at my little panel down here. Yeah. And me technologically. It's like, I don't know. So, okay. So I think what we'll do is we'll just leave the meeting, but anything else?
Di is saying she can't get back on. She just texted me.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I'll just leave with this because I know it's being recorded. So we'll leave the meeting and I'll let her handle the recording part. And I ended this with my interview on Thursday and it was like a research topic that I've read that I felt like was so applicable in regards to depression and anxiety, is the best thing for it is connection. So if you're having trouble, if that you're struggling, and again, this is more of a challenge during this time, but we still have ways to do that, is connection with others, to connect. So, yes, and I said, you can contact the church, you can contact me. I'm on Facebook, and Ann Hopkins is my name on Facebook. My maiden name's in there, so if you want to message me, that's great. And so, was
there a specific email at the church that she gave you to have people reach out to you?
Or no, because I'm not technically on staff there, so I don't have, but it's Ann Hopkins 160 at Gmail. No E, Ann Hopkins 160 at Gmail. That's my email address. Message me on Facebook either way. Respond, and if you have any more questions or just have something you want to talk to me about, that would be great.
We were talking about boundaries right before she left. Did you have any other thoughts on that, or did we finish that thought well enough?
The way I characterize boundaries is what I do in my own personal life, and what I suggest to my clients is, when you're in a relationship or a situation, the question you ask yourself, what is my appropriate role? And really answer it honestly. What's your role in that? So that will eliminate a lot of stuff you have to do sometimes. It's not your role.
And I can hear you. I just can't get back in. I can hear you. I just can't see you. It keeps asking me if I want to leave the meeting, but if I leave the meeting, I'm afraid it crashes it for all of you.
Okay. Well, I think we're done.
Thank you so much, Ann. I appreciate your time and your wisdom. I'm happy to share this with others if all of you are okay with that. And hopefully it will be helpful to others too. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Happy day. Hopefully I'll see you in person again soon.
Hopefully, yes. Okay. Bye.
Bye.